But Islam has been articulated through a discourse of violence and anger. I disagree. Even disagreement is a violent disagreement. There's no mutual.
Yes.
Allah umjali wetu Allah.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful. Alhamdulillah, all praise be to Allah, who has made it possible for us again to sit under the umbrella and the banner of SMA, Soweto Muslim Association, in conversation with different personalities that are the greatest of people that you find within the walks of life, amongst the indigenous people, amongst our people, the inhabitants of this land, in this geographical space called South Africa. We are very happy again and again to have people that would share and guide with regards to Islam, this our beautiful faith of Islam, and give light to our people. And we continue again on this platform to showcase some of the people that we hold very high, people that have played a pivotal and the most important role in the dissemination of Islam, as well as those who shine amongst our indigenous people. Today I am very excited, I am very happy today to have one amongst our own that many of us as Muslims growing up, we knew them to be the shining stars of Islam. We also envied them to say, Allah will make us one of the days to reach their level. But they have played an important role in South Africa. They may not be known by many other people, but those who are in very important or who play important roles in developing communities, particularly of those who are of Muslim indigenous or the indigenous Muslims of South Africa, they would know them very well, that they are the people to be reckoned with. They are the people that will share their stories with us. Today I am sitting with none other than our Dr. Tãhir Fuzile Sitoto, who is an activist as well as a scholar and a community leader whose work explores Islam, race, and African Muslim identity, who is our indigenous scholar, highly realized, recognized, who hails from the PE at Uitenhage in Uitenhage, and who is the familiar face amongst us. Let us welcome him. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
It is an honor to have you today. It is an honor that Soweto Muslim Association is sitting with you today. We are honored because we understand your schedules. Your schedules are very busy. And for a person that you are today, sometimes, I'm one of the people that actually speaks a lot and maybe relevant. But to sit in your presence today, it gives me the highest of honor. May Allah make it that we don't just sit here, but we sit also in the hereafter, that we join the prophets in Jannah.
Amen.
And may the people be guided today with your words of wisdom and what we have achieved over a period of time, or rather maybe in your lifetime. We have a traditional question that we normally ask here at SMA whenever we are having our guest. And I think we should just start from there to ask and maybe make our audience understand who is Dr. Tãhir Fuzile Sitoto.
Now, first of all, thank you for those gracious, warm words of welcome. I appreciate them. And it is also my honor to sit in your esteemed company. Where does one begin? Tãhir Fuzile Sitoto, or maybe Fuzile, because Fuzile comes first.
Oh, yes.
Was born in the Eastern Cape,
Yes.
in what was known as Uitenhage.
Yes.
And of course, later on, through forced removals, as you know our history, through forced removals. We then relocated to a nearby township known as Kwanobuhle,
Yes.
Kwanobuhle Township.
Yes.
And I've grown up there. My early years were spent in Uitenhage. I studied at what was called Limekaya High School. And then fast forward, I also spent a stint at the Asalam Educational Institute. And of course, the rest is history. I often say that I was raised by two mothers.
Oh, yeah.
My biological mother, I would like to acknowledge her, is Umagajini.
Oh, yes.
Undondela. Yeah.
Mashallah.
Intombi yakwa youth. And my father, who's late, by the way, he passed quite early whilst we were still very young. And he also transitioned to the other world whilst he was still very young. Uvakele. So those are my biological parents, but amongst all our siblings, I was raised by my grandparents.
Yes.
And hence I'm saying I had the pleasure of having two mothers.
Oh, yes.
So I was raised by my grandparents, Umakhadebe, Intombi, yeah, Intombi Agwagaba.
Oh, yes.
And of course, my grandfather, because my biological grandfather also transitioned quite early.
Yes.
And so my father was actually also adopted, so to speak,
Oh, yes.
and raised by my grandparents, who then also took this particular child, Ufuzile,
Oh, yes.
and raised them under their care.
Yes.
Whilst my biological parents raised the other siblings.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now
And of course, I'm the second born, and I have an elder brother who was quite, by the way, prominent in the struggle
Oh, yes.
against apartheid, and especially within UDF circles.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now you have got this environment, the situation, I don't know, normally we would refer to it as an era of apartheid that was, that somehow we experienced within South Africa, which it was a very, very bad kind of an environment that we actually experienced. Here is, you have got Group Areas Act that is actually there that affected everybody else. I think this was in 1948, done by Verwoerd, the father of apartheid, where he spoke about different kind of acts that were there of 1948 until maybe 1960 or 1958, if you like.
Yes.
Where he spoke about Separate Immunities Act and all of that, where we were not allowed to mix in terms of our race
Yes.
or groups.
Yes.
And
yes.
at the same time, you have got this Islam, the
Yes.
religion that is there.
Yes.
Which then predominantly it was known to be this Asian thing that is new, that is actually brought about in South Africa.
Yes.
How was your experience in that now that you are introduced to Islam during this kind of trial and era?
Well, it's a very interesting story, by the way.
Yes.
At the time when we were doing history section at school,
Yes.
so I came across this chapter called Mohammedanism.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah? Of course, it was distorted,
Yes.
but nevertheless, it was called Mohammedanism. And I was fascinated by this chapter.
Yes.
Because in a way, it was articulating, distorted as it was,
Correct.
aspects of Islam and what Islam is and what it represents.
Oh, yeah.
Also, at the time, I was coming into my political consciousness.
Oh, yeah.
And then my grandmother that I had referred to earlier, Umakhadebe,
Yes.
she used to shop grocery at a Muslim owned
Oh, yeah.
shop, the security owned by the security family.
Oh,
And of course, I used to accompany her.
yes.
You know, I used to accompany her on a regular basis. And as I was reading about Islam
Yes.
at high school, in this distorted version, it then occurred to me that actually where my grandmother is shopping, it's owned by Muslims.
Yes.
And next to them, of course, was the butchery,
Yes.
the security butchery. And then I instinctively, may Allah be pleased with him,
I mean,
the late Haji, they used to call him Haji Abdullah Sakoti.
oh, yeah.
So he was the one running the shop.
Oh, wow.
And so I inquired from him that I would like to know more about your religion.
Yes.
Just like that.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And then, of course, he gave me 2 central texts, thin pamphlets,
Wow.
one in English and one isiXhosa,
Yes.
by the late Alama Siddiqui. He used to visit South Africa. He was from the Indo-Pak,
Yes.
and do national lecture tours.
Yes.
So, and one of his lectures was translated, it was called The Principles of Islam, and simultaneously translated into isiXhosa as Iziseko Zenkolo ye-Islam.
Wow.
So I consumed this within one afternoon reading,
Yes.
all right? Both the English version and the isiXhosa version.
Yes.
And by the time I had finished reading them, I said, wow, but this is a rearticulation
Exactly.
of our quote-unquote indigenous belief.
Yes.
Emphasis on the oneness of the divine, and various other aspects which resonated with me. Wow. So as I was reading Iziseko Zenkolo ye-Islam, it was like revisiting my own belief.
Correct.
So I then immediately made up my mind that I want to take the Shahada.
Subhanallah.
Yeah, to cut a long narrative, that is
Yes.
my introduction into Islam.
We amongst the indigenous Muslim, or rather the indigenous people of South Africa, under the impression they started getting the knowledge of understanding who Muslims are when amongst the black people who are the indigenous Muslims post-apartheid. They didn't know, of course, amongst those who are the fundis, amongst those who have ventured into universities, they started learning about greater personalities. Like if you look at Malik al-Shabazz, Malcolm X, they learn about Muhammad Ali, and many others. Some of them that would relate to some of the stories of the Nation of Islam.
Yes, yes,
Louis
yes.
Farrakhan.
Oh, yes.
We're speaking about earlier about Dr. Khalid al-Mansour.
That's right, yes.
Some of them came across that. Little do they know that we have so many amongst the indigenous Muslims that got their Islam through literature.
Yes,
got
absolutely.
their Islam in exile, some of them.
That's true.
And that Islam is big within Africa. In terms of numbers, many of African countries relate to Islam as their religion more than they would relate to any other religion or maybe Christianity. So it becomes taboo to them when you tell them, we have got the likes of Dr. Sitoto, who was intrigued by Islam through literature, and he can still relate to some of those issues that were there. I think our people would have a different light and a different knowledge of how they actually come into Islam. Now you are a Muslim, you are introduced to Islam, you are looking at now, how do I now move forward? What does this entail? How does this then now push you to say, no, I need to study more, I need to understand more of this Islam?
Well, this is how the narrative on As-Salam comes in.
Oh, yes.
Okay. In the early stages, of course, I always boast that my first lessons, maybe I should step a little bit back,
Okay.
going back to this connection with the Sitoto family.
Oh, yes.
I also, of course, it was like some kind of a second home to me.
Yes.
Okay, I remember one incident where the eldest son, that is Rafiq,
Yes.
was going through his madrasa kitab, and so I would start reading with him as well. You see. But my early lessons, for example, was in Tahara, and that I was introduced and taught by Alhaj Abdullah Serkoti.
Yes.
That was before I went to Assalam.
Yes.
But going to Assalam sort of made me to yearn
Wow.
for more learning.
Oh, yes.
Okay, this is then what then led me later on to go to Riyadh.
Oh, yes.
In
Saudi Arabia.
in Saudi Arabia.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
I don't know if you do remember, but I actually I was there at Assalam. I'm not saying during that time when you were there. I remember that there was a farewell that actually we were introduced to say there's someone who is actually leaving to pursue his education in America. And we were excited because then, as a young man, when we speak about America, you're speaking about something very exciting then, because all the Hollywood thing comes to mind and everything like that. And we were right at Assalam and we were waiting for this guest to come through. We spoke about Brother Ali Matonsi that came through, and he came with yourself to say, here's his brother Tãhir Sitoto is the one that is leaving for America. And I was there to fare you well when you were actually going. So when you speak about Assalam, then fast forward, you are into the Arab Peninsula now. You're going amongst to the Arabs. And because what happens is that when you move from South Africa and you move along towards the Arab Peninsula, you somehow now moving away also in terms of the direction or the education that is different.
Absolutely.
When you're amongst the Arabs, what is the experience there when you get there?
Wow. A very interesting question. Of course, the first challenge was to come into grips with the lugha, with the Arabic language.
Correct.
All right. So as you know, the system over there, the first 2 years is just learning the language.
Correct.
In the Mahad,
Yes.
Mahad al-Lugha.
Yes.
Mahad al-Lugha al-Arabiyya li ghayri natiqina biha.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Train you in the language.
Oh yes.
And interestingly, earlier on, I know in the conference, I met someone who actually studied there later, and he was narrating his story of how he studied at Riyadh, at the Mahad, and then later on went to Medina University.
Yes.
But yeah, maybe I might be appearing to be comparing, so let me not get into that narrative. Yeah. But the Mahad played a very critical role in grounding one into the Arabic language.
Correct.
You see. Now, one other beautiful thing about that experience is that there was this international cosmopolitan community of students coming from almost every corner of the world.
Correct.
So we had very exciting, interesting conversations. Of course, amongst the South Africans, as you know, our racial dynamics, I was in the Riyadh context.
Oh, yes.
I was the first so-called Black, Indigenous, African to be accepted in the Mahad.
Yes.
Previous candidates before that came from the historical conventional Muslim communities.
Oh, yes.
And of course, there were you referred to in passing, our African American brothers.
Yes.
You see, they literally became possessive over me. They wanted to claim me as part of their own. So most of my company
Yes.
was amongst those brothers. In as much as I interacted with South Africans, but the
Yes.
Americans were like over possessive, so to speak, Black American
yeah.
brothers.
Oh, yeah.
You know, because in their eyes they were seeing one of us.
Oh, yeah. One who comes from our motherland.
Yes,
Yeah.
you know, that sort of thing.
Yes.
But I then finished the Mahad and then entered the Kulliyat, what they call Kulliyat to Tarbiya,
Yes.
College of Education.
Yes.
So I started the first few semesters, but I did not complete because I felt that the educational system, to get back to your point,
Yes.
was a bit alienating for me.
Oh, yes.
You see?
Oh, yes.
But also there was this desire. South Africa politically at the time was burning, if you will.
Correct.
And I wanted to be home
Oh, yeah.
in the heat and heart of the struggle.
Oh, yes.
And not watch it on television.
Oh, yes.
So I then left Riyadh and returned without completing the Kuliya. The rest of my education was completed in different phases, partly in
yes.
South Africa, and then, of course, partly in
In the U.S.
the U.S., a brief stint at the U.S. at Binghamton
Yes.
University,
Yes.
State University of New York at Binghamton,
Oh, yes.
where the late Professor Ali Mazrui
Yes.
was based.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
There is not very much of our own indigenous people that we hear of them that have taken the similar journey that was there. Rather, what we were confined within the space of South Africa, in where we were introduced to different kind of faculties of Islamic knowledge, but of course it was still confined within a prescribed syllabi
Yeah.
that came from the Dars al-Nidame or Nidame Darsiya that that was prescribed to us. Of course, now we have someone like yourself that comes back to South Africa, and he plays a very instrumental role within the Muslim community at large, not only within the indigenous people. How did this come about?
That's also that's a bit of a complex story, complex narrative. Being thrown into mainstream Muslim community, socio-cultural, political issues
Yes.
was really in the context of the Muslim youth movement of South Africa.
Oh, yes.
I had mentioned that I was born in Uitenhage.
Yes.
So in the early stages, in the formation of the Muslim youth movement, as it was trying to reach out to different provinces so that it can have a national character,
Yes.
Its leadership, Ibrahim Jadwat,
Yes.
Almarhum Dr. Shaukat
Oh, yes.
Token, may Allah be pleased with him,
Amen.
they visited Uitenhage. And there they met a group of which we were also part of. It was called Nurul Islam.
Oh, yes.
A combination of us in the township and brothers across, so to speak,
Yes.
the railway line, to use that metaphor.
Yes.
And amongst them was brother Fuad Hendricks,
Yes.
who played a very, very critical role in being some kind of our intellectual mentor.
Oh, yes.
But because the ideals and vision of what was called Nurul Islam was similar to the Muslim youth movement, it was felt that Nurul Islam should collapse and be submerged
Yes.
and be part of the Muslim youth movement.
Oh, yeah.
So from infancy, if you will,
Oh, yeah.
we became aligned
Oh, yeah.
with the vision of the Muslim youth movement and what it represented.
Yes.
You see? And so our consciousness and introduction into Islamic thinking, debates as it were, for us, or for myself in particular, was through the stream, if I might call it, of the MYM.
Oh, yes.
And as you know, which was very critical of traditional Muslim scholarship.
Correct.
In as much as it engaged with that scholarship, but it was very critical of that scholarship.
I think it's not a mistake that you mentioned this, because now something is triggered in my mind. When you speak about MYM, the Muslim Youth Movement, that was a movement that was set somehow to develop certain programs of Muslims within that space of the time. I don't want to attribute it to a certain racial development or anything like that, but it was there maybe to somehow promote Islam. But when you talk about Nurul Islam, it is amazing that maybe about a month back, or maybe few weeks back, there was a commemoration of Nurul Islam in Lens of 50 years of existence. And I am informed, because I think it slipped my mind. I wanted to go because it's interesting. Every speaker that stood there to say something about Nurul Islam, of those who were there and understood the history very well, they couldn't say anything without mentioning Soweto, because Soweto played a very pivotal role in the development of Nurul Islam. That we know some of the stories also, that even Dr. Mamoniat that was there, in Nurul Islam, it was somehow even the office to direct programs of Soweto, it was in Nurul Islam, where we did not understand that, were we not competent enough to actually look after our own things. I mean, given that also you are a person that is very passionate about independence, did this assist somehow through the program of MYM to develop, and propagate Islam amongst the indigenous people?
The story and narrative of the MYM, again, I want to say it's a very complex one.
Yes.
But also, I think I want to separate between the Nurul Islam that you are referring to and the Nurul Islam that I'm referring to in Uitenhage. It was a basically local initiative.
Oh, yes.
And they just selected that name. But however, what you are pointing at is what Ibrahim Bofelo, in my late conversation with him, had referred to as a mutual beneficiation.
Yes.
In other words, across the Muslim communities, there was this cross-fertilization of ideas. And so us, as, if I may frame it in those terms, as Black African Muslims, we're not passive recipients.
Oh, yes.
All right. We were also informing the debates and discourses that were unfolding. And the MYM became, if you will, this melting pot.
Yes.
And perhaps one of its major contributions was facilitating the engagement of different critical voices.
Yes.
And important critical voices in developing what Professor Abdul Qadir Tayyip has called the modern Islamic paradigm.
Oh, yeah.
Was the Black African Muslim critical voice emanating from members of the Muslim Youth Movement that were challenging this articulation of a so-called pan-Islamist vision that was divorced
Yes.
from the South African reality, and pushed the MYM to come into terms.
Oh, yes.
What Abdul Qadir Tayyip in the Islamic Resurgent text on the MYM has called contextualization.
Yes.
Of course, he gives credit to those that came from mainly so-called historical Muslim communities of the Asian diaspora, and a little bit thin and silent on the intellectual contribution
Yes.
that was made by the Black African Muslim membership not as a passive entity,
Yes.
but as critical players
Oh, yeah.
in developing this so-called contextualization of the Muslim youth movement.
Looking back, did it yield any kind of fruits you as the president, because at some point you became the president of MYM, did it yield some kind of fruits in somehow shaping the narrative of the indigenous Muslims that should have been told by themselves, the indigenous Muslims, in terms of development where we see ourselves today?
Unfortunately, my coming into leadership came as a surprise
Oh, yes.
across the racial divide.
Oh, yeah.
The Black African Muslim sector was suspicious,
Oh, yeah.
was suspicious of this move. On the other hand, Muslims from the other racial divide were asking, how did it happen?
Yeah.
So in a way, I was caught in the middle, in between.
Yes.
You see, not everyone within the Black African Muslim community embraced and accepted this transition
Yes.
within the Muslim youth movement.
Oh, yeah.
But because the MYM was not based on racial identification, so we continued to mobilize and try to execute the programs and visions of the MYM within those limiting constraints.
Oh, yeah.
But I suppose that's a conversation for another time.
Yeah.
That is the internal historical and political dynamics within the MYM itself.
Oh, yeah.
By and large, the Black African Muslim community was very skeptical.
Oh, yeah.
And the others also, you see, yeah. So it was not an easy time, as
yeah.
it were.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
One can only imagine, because the environment even then wouldn't have just allowed anybody of color, if we put it, to be in such a very prominent and very influential position without anybody saying, you know what, in the apartheid area, they will say he needs a tire. How come they have accepted him?
Yes,
in the words of many leaders that they've said, that if I think I'm not too sure if it belongs to Samora Machel, where he says that if you see the white man smiling with me and accepting me, you must know that I have actually sold you. So this was actually said within,
Except, though, that perhaps that is a bit problematic, because this was within the Muslim context.
100%.
Yeah. So these were Muslims, and we were also Muslims.
No, 100%.
So yeah.
No, maybe one day we will read a paper that will read something that you would have written in terms of your experiences as in the leadership of MYM, that many of our generation to come, they will actually read and hear a different perspective from that. And now, fast forward, you're going to the US. You were exposed there to philosophy, interpretation, and culture. How did that experience influence your approach to Islam in Africana philosophy?
The US experience, to be honest, it was really the intellectual, academic journey.
Yes.
It was not so, because remember, I was already Muslim.
Yes.
Grounded in some of the conventional, traditional ways, and of course with the background of the MYM, of a critical approach to the Islamic tradition. So what was enriching about the US context was really the intellectual exposure.
Oh, yeah.
In South Africa, we tend to push for very rigid, strict specializations. I was fortunate there to be in a postgraduate program called Philosophy, Interpretation, and Culture. This is what compelled me to read some very classical, critical, philosophical texts, but also not reading philosophy in its very narrow, rigid way,
Oh, yeah.
but looking at it through a critical lens.
Yes.
That is where I was then introduced to what is called Africana existential philosophy,
Oh, yeah.
or Black existential philosophy, as articulated in particular by Lewis Gordon,
Oh.
what he called existence in black.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Existence in black, which is an articulation of Black existential philosophical thought, which in ways engages also with existentialist philosophy as articulated by the likes of Jean-Paul Sartre, of course, the works of Frantz Fanon.
Yes.
Yeah. But what that exposure for me and reading those texts, I think they became much more useful later when, again, in my intellectual journey, I decided to, for example, work on someone like the late marhum, may Allah be pleased with him, Don Matera.
Oh, yes.
You see, I then used these theoretical tools from Africana Black existential philosophy as I interrogated a figure like Don Matera, for example.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And so it enabled me to engage again and raise other critical questions around what does it mean to be Black, African, and Muslim. Something that is not adequately addressed
Yes.
either in Islamic studies scholarship
Yes.
or so-called African studies scholarship. I'm talking in the philosophical sense.
Yes.
How do we analyze and interpret this kind of identity?
Yes.
What does it mean to be Black, African, and Muslim? Not in a sociological, descriptive sense,
Oh, yes.
but beyond the sociological sense.
We might somehow, it would make sense for us maybe to start recognizing, some of this kind of researches that were actually done for us to recognize and realize who we are. Particularly when you mentioned, because of myself, I was very fortunate that I was mentored by Don Matera,
Wow.
Farouk, I was very honored that I was the last person in his demise. Actually, he actually asked that we should wash him. I was the last one to wash him as well.
Wow,
And I was honored with this from his family. So when you speak about that such great achievements, this was the man that articulated himself very well.
Absolutely.
Beautiful, the Azanian songs.
Oh yes,
But his last or latest work that he actually did, what was so beautiful, it was Memory is the Weapon. Great works that he has actually done. But also your research explores on Islam, race, and Black African Muslim subjectivities.
Yes.
Why do you think this conversation are important for both Muslims and non-Muslims in South Africa?
Well, where do we start? First of all, I'm just my heart warms up because the subject of Don Matera and what he represents is very close to my heart, not just as an intellectual project, as it were. Even to say project is not adequate itself.
Yeah.
But the fact that we could honor him in this way,
Yes.
it was a way of course, any study is critical, but what better way to honor one's legacy
Yes.
by engaging
Yes.
with his ideas and thought,
Oh, yes.
and trying to make sense of them, but also in a very real day-to-day living and sense. It is quite heartening to hear that as you are sitting in front of me. You were the
yes.
one who offered the final sending rituals, as
Correct.
it were.
Correct,
And
yes.
then may Allah
I mean,
reward you immensely
Ameen.
for that. Now, back to your question.
oh yes.
The question of Islam and race, especially how it relates to the Black African Muslim experience, again, it's one of those quite complex issues and conversations. In my own sense, perhaps I need to qualify how I engage with this question.
Yes.
I engage with this question of Islam and race, not so much in the sense of looking at intra-racial relations and dynamics or anti-Black racism, if you will, not so much in that sense.
Yes.
But rather in the sense of looking at how scholarship
Yes.
on Islam and Muslims in South Africa
Yes.
is scripted. How do we write about Islam and Muslims in South Africa?
Mm.
By the scholarly community.
Yes.
As you are aware, in most cases, if you pick up any text on the history of Islam in South Africa, it talks about the history of Islam in the Cape,
Yes.
and then it talks about Islam in the so-called former Natal in the colonial apartheid era,
Oh yes.
and of course, and in the Transvaal.
Oh yes.
And to paraphrase, and without getting into nitty-gritties of Islamic historiography, as we would call it, it then foregrounds and characterize Islam and associate it exclusively with what I call Muslim communities of the Asian diaspora.
Oh yes.
I'm trying to be.
Oh yes.
I mean, I know I'm using this term Asian diaspora in a very generic way. And so Islamic history in South Africa,
Yes.
in a sense, is told through the narrative of the Muslim communities of the Asian diaspora.
Oh yes.
But that's not an accurate history. It excludes, it erases Black African Muslim presence in Islam, not as prompted by conversions,
Yes.
which is partly correct, but not entirely correct.
Yes.
Because where do we locate communities such as the Zanzibari Muslim communities, for example,
Yes.
whose history is as early, by the way, as the early history of Islam in the country?
Yes.
What again Abdul Qadir calls communities under the shadows.
Yes.
So why should our presence be a presence that is under the shadows? It is under the shadows, again, to borrow Taib's expression, simply because scholarship itself has scripted Islamic history through this one-dimensional narrative of Islam came with the Asian diaspora, simplified.
Oh yeah.
Yeah? And so I engage, therefore, with the question of Islam and race by looking at what I call the scholarly praxis.
Yeah.
What has it produced? It has produced an image and an account of Islam that in many ways becomes a racial affair.
Yeah. Yeah.
That excludes you and me
Yeah.
out of the main story, out of the
Correct.
main narrative.
Correct.
And so how do we then insert the Black African Muslim presence
Yeah.
in that broader narrative? And this is what my real research focus has been dedicated to. And it is through that narrative, through that question, then that one delves into questions of Black African Muslim, what I call subjectivities. How do they self-understand Islam without being under the patronage
Yes. Yes.
of someone else?
Yes.
That is beyond what I have called the narrative of conversion. Because the narrative of conversion to Islam
Yes.
is just but one narrative. And even that narrative of conversion, to what extent is it a form of othering?
Yes.
Othering the black Muslim other. Was suspect, was suspect, as the 2019 SAPMC conference
Oh yes. Oh yes.
illustrated.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Oh yes. Oh yes. Really,
Yeah.
there is a lot that we are reading some of your works that you have actually written beautifully. But we want to see more works that actually somehow expounds on this issues to teach our people, or maybe open that the third eye, as they would call it, to a new horizon in understanding who we are. Because if you are to look at you look at the community that has been there for the longest of time before the advent of the ships coming from the Asian subcontinent, coming into the shores of KwaZulu-Natal, we have got the people that refers to themselves as the Makua people.
Yes, absolutely.
And you speak about the Zulu people. If you ask the Zulu people, who is a foreigner, how do you refer to a foreigner? What term you use? They say we use the term Amazizimbane, which it actually refers to Zanzibar people.
Mazinzimba.
Meaning that they were there before that, So even now it actually questions the issue of xenophobia, to say we knew nothing about xenophobia because many of those that actually came from the Southern Africa, there are those who came actually to work in the mines,
Absolutely.
who were referred to, some of them, they were called Kiriman.
Amakiriman.
Meaning the clean man, because they would see this man going to wash 5 times a day, going to pray all of the time. So I think we need to refer back to such histories to understand exactly the teachings that you are putting forward to us, that maybe we may grow from that in understanding ourselves, who we are. Now, what is it that we actually should be somehow gaining from these conversations, or the importance of both Muslims and non-Muslims into this issue of, I don't want to refer to it as a race and confine it there, but in this greater community of Muslims in South Africa?
Perhaps maybe to also step back a little bit.
Yes.
I've in my own usage, I have a problem using this term non-Muslim.
Oh yes.
Because when we say non, to what extent are we saying, are we connoting non-being? To what extent is non not a description of negation?
Yes.
Yeah. So I will have a problem with using that term personally.
Oh yes.
That is used quite loosely within Muslim circles. But of course, writing about Islam and Muslims and the Black African Muslim sector in particular is bigger than just one individual. You see, so we need more entrance. We need more entrance into the field of academic study that can amplify other dimensions of this very complex community, by the way.
Oh yes.
I'm talking the Black African Muslim community itself.
Oh, yes.
You've raised a very fascinating point about the notion of Amazinzimba,
Yes.
the Zanzibaris. They were there before,
Correct.
quite early. And then the issues of migration to work in the mines, the Malawian and
Yes.
Mozambican migrations, some of them were Muslims, yes, and the cross marriages, for example,
Oh, yes.
with the indigenous locals, and those intercultural dynamics that were unfolding that have not been as yet adequately interpreted and analyzed.
Yes.
And hence, there's a whole minefield to be researched and written about. Hence, I have challenged and questioned this, what I call conscripting so-called black African Muslims through this one-dimensional narrative of conversion, as it were. But in speaking to the issue of Islam and race, of course, as your question points out, one is also speaking to the broader question of how religion is racialized and understood in South Africa.
Yes.
Chances are, if you're black, African, and Muslim, and you are dressed in the way that you are dressed, in our indigenous languages, but bazenza masulumane.
Yes. Yes.
Bazenza
Yes,
masulumane.
it's true.
In the Cape, bazenza maslavs.
Muslims.
Bazenza maslavs.
Yes.
Very pejorative, negative description.
Yes.
In other words, you have taken an alien, foreign identity
Yes.
that does not belong to you. This is the public perception of our people, by the way, black Africans
Yes.
in general.
Yes.
Because in their understanding, Islam is perceived as this foreign religio-cultural phenomenon.
Yes.
And so to be Muslim, black, and African, and much more, you then entrench it with the dress code. Then, bazenza masulman.
Yes.
Yes. You see, that's at the level of the general public perception.
Correct.
And then, of course, what is perhaps even more disappointing is the so-called, the ostensibly enlightened, so-called educated classes,
Yes.
who also don't make this distinction. I often meet professionals
Yes.
across the racial
Yes.
divide. When they discover or hear that somehow you're Muslim, and they say, but how come?
Yeah.
How come? Because in their perception, Islam is a racialized identity.
Yes.
And yet, if they had studied and were familiar with the history
Yes.
of Islam in the African continent,
Yes.
Islam is not alien and foreign in Africa. In fact, one scholar, South African scholar based in the States, Sin Jacobs, he writes about Islam and race, but in the context of the Cape.
Oh, yeah.
And he makes a point that others have also observed, that the anomaly about Islam in South Africa, he says, that is Sin Jacobs.
Yes.
It is anything but African. In South Africa, it is not African. But elsewhere in the African continent,
Yes.
it has this strong African character
Oh, yes.
that is unmistaken,
Yes.
accompanied by a very rich tradition of critical thought and scholarship. Of course, earlier on in our conversation,
Yes.
we referred to the scholarship of Sheikh Uthman Dan Fodio, Ahmed Baba,
Sheikh Ibrahim Nias.
Sheikh Ibrahim Nias, the Songhai Empire and the scholarship within that empire, the Timbuktu
Yes.
tradition, scholarly
Yes.
tradition. In fact, one of the speakers at this conference was Dr. Shahid Mati,
Oh, yeah.
who was a specialist in the Timbuktu manuscripts,
Yes.
was speaking just precisely on that tradition, at the Timbuktu tradition.
Yes.
So where do we start when we talk about Islam and race and its interfaith with blackness?
Yes.
Do we go back to the time of the Prophet? Or do we start in modernity or in contemporary times? Where do we start? So some of the issues and questions that appear to be modern questions, in a sense, are not necessarily speaking modern questions.
Oh, yes.
In fact, interestingly, if I were to give a preview of a contribution I'm making elsewhere,
Yes.
I revisit this question of Islam and blackness during the prophetic time.
Yes.
And of course, I bring in into conversation Ahmad Baba himself.
Yes.
But of course, yeah, that's a conversation for elsewhere. Yeah.
Yes. So you have got, even if you are to take it very back, which I don't want us also to dwell into it, if you take it during the time of the Prophet, there is very important segments of history that many of the people do not want to discuss and talk about. Maybe that would have been more relevant if Islam maybe was taken from that stream. If you look at Osama ibn Zayd, his blackness, his Africanness, everybody speaks about, but it's not something that is normally pronounced within the the perimeters of, or rather maybe the conversations of Islam that is taking place in South Africa.
Absolutely.
You talk about Wahshi, a great man, or you will only hear about Bilal radiallahu anhu if it suits a certain narrative.
Absolutely.
And there is so many of those. The lady that played a most important role in the life of the Prophet himself, peace be upon him, Ayman.
Ayman,
Whom the Prophet referred to her as my other mother,
mother,
other
yes.
than my biological mother.
Yes, absolutely.
Nobody speaks about this.
Absolutely.
And the very great Sahabi that the Prophet wanted to adopt as his own son, he's the one that later on gets married to Ayman.
Zayd ibn
Harith. Now, these are the kind of stories that we want to hear, but unfortunately, they didn't reach many of our, greater audience or the communities amongst the indigenous Muslims. We can talk about this and up until whatever time that may have been there, but we will never get to the bottom of it up until we have that self-realization. And I know that you champion self-realization. What is independency when it comes particularly to the indigenous Muslims of South Africa in your own space?
Well, the idea or notion of independency can be interpreted in many ways. First, of course, we've just teased out snippets
Yes.
of Islamic history and how we can take ownership of that history.
Yes.
And find our presence and find our own voices within that history. Of course, those voices, unfortunately, as you have hinted, in most instances are a footnote.
Yes.
Because who is telling the history? Who is writing the history? I don't want to get into the issue of what other scholars, Suleiman Bashir Dieng and Akinde have called Arab centrism,
Yes.
Arabocentrism,
Yes.
And the scripting of the Islamic intellectual legacy
yes.
and tradition
Yes.
through Arabocentric
yeah.
lenses. But again, that's a conversation for elsewhere. But to even going back to the classical archive,
Yes.
and find ourselves and interpret that archive is one form of what I call taking on the intellectual agency and finding our own presence. Our presence is there, not as these new comers.
Oh, yes.
No, but to go all the way back in history. But in the other, perhaps sociological sense, you will note that I hardly talk about the so-called phenomenon of so-called dawah.
Yes.
Because I often ask, invitation to what?
Yes.
Invitation to what? What are you calling the people into? You've got to sort your house in order. Sort your house in order. Yeah. So by independence, then I mean, Black African Muslims must take ownership.
Yes.
Again, I'm invoking ownership, not in a negative way.
Yes.
Take ownership of Islam. And we must learn from the history of the Black church in the country.
Oh, yeah.
And stop.
Oh, yeah.
And stop being in this oppositional mode, this oppositional combative combative mode, and learn from the history of the church in the
yes.
country. Most churches, by the way, are built through the agency
Yes.
of the Black African membership,
Oh, yeah.
eh?
Oh, yeah.
Not from external donors.
Oh, yes.
In one sense, this is what I mean by taking ownership, that we must find creative ways to self-sustain our masjids, for example, and have financial independence and find creative ways, again, to raise finances so that we can sustain mosques, educational institutions, the madaris,
Yes.
so that the syllabus
Yes.
that is taught is not a syllabi that is come with the demands of the financial donor and the financial sponsor, where we then make our own children replicas of someone else's religio-cultural identity.
Yeah.
So by ownership, really, perhaps it is a metaphor for saying cultural translation of Islam
Yes.
in a real sense to make it resonate
Yes.
with its African environment. It must be driven through African agency.
Yes.
But that African agency also need to ask hard questions, because if it perpetuates Darsun Nizami,
Yes.
it is doing more havoc and more harm. Sorry, I might offend others,
Yes.
But we have to. One scholar by the name of Lamine Sané has called this process naturalization and domestication of Islam.
Yes.
In short, Africanization of Islam
We wish to
within our own context.
Yes.
But that can be done by yourselves, but through first deconstructing what we have inherited from elsewhere. Yeah.
I have always had this idea of saying that you might differ with it on that scholarly level, but maybe on a general level in the public.
Yes.
That I had always said maybe we might need some kind of renewal of a Shahada festival. So we may find ourselves who we are, because it's very important the door in which you entered or you used into entering into Islam. It plays an important role. Maybe also the other issue that, you mentioned the likes of the Frantz Fanon, coming back home, the likes of Stephen Bantu Biko, and Don Matera. They spoke about the black consciousness.
Oh yes.
And they coined it very well to the self-realization who you are and
absolutely,
all of that.
absolutely.
Of course, without the elements of discrimination,
Absolutely.
and maybe denigrating other races that are there. But you realize yourself and you teach the children and the generations to come to say, this is your religion, own it up.
Yes.
You are not here to ask, what should Islam do for me? But you ask, what can I do for Islam?
Absolutely.
Then that's when we go forward.
Absolutely.
Maybe fast forward, you also taught, you still teaching in South Africa, lecturing in South Africa, but I'm more interested in Riyadh and maybe in the US. What do you think unites the Muslims globally, and what unique contributions can African Muslims bring to the broader Ummah?
Tough question. One word: humanizing Islam. To humanize Islam through the ethos of Bilal ibn Rabah. Through that humility of Bilal ibn Rabah. What does that humility mean? When everyone else was squabbling, people get offended when I use this word. When everyone else was squabbling for leadership after the demise of Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when everyone else was squabbling for leadership,
Yes.
Bilal was still meditating on the demise of the beloved Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And when they eventually come to him,
Yes.
some few, of course, who said, maybe we think in their squabble
Yes.
and differences, should leadership come from the Ansar or from the Muhajirin?
Yes.
Or from the Quraysh?
Yes.
And some came to Bilal. What was Bilal's answer? فإنما كنت بالأمس عبد حبشي فأبو بكر خير مني.
Subhanallah.
Yesterday I was only a slave from Habasha.
Yes.
Abu Bakr is better than me.
Yes.
What lesson in humility? Yeah? Especially
Most
in this
amazing.
context of takfir,
Yes.
yeah, where slight difference of opinion, we make takfir, we diminish, we dehumanize the different point of view. So our contribution to the global Ummah is to take a page from Bilal and many others, to say we must again to invoke Steve Biko,
Yes.
To give the Ummah a humanly face, and move away from this rhetoric. I know it's a bit of a simplification, but Islam has been articulated through a discourse of violence and anger. I disagree. Even disagreement is a violent disagreement. There's no mutual.
Yes. We're sitting with one.
Mutual different, differing, accepting different opinions in a mutual way.
Oh yes.
Yeah. Of course, I'm not talking about current geopolitical issues. I'm just talking in the general intra-Muslim interaction.
Oh yes.
Even our political disagreements,
Oh yeah.
need to be articulated in a much more humanly way.
Correct.
What I
Correct,
would
we fully
call
agree.
the way of Bilal.
Oh yes. There's a very beautiful saying that I've come across. I'll check on the authenticity of it, but this is attributed to the Prophet ﷺ, where he says that there are three things that you can learn from the Africans which you will never find in any other nation. One of them is that persistence in terms of your tawheed, your belief. He says the greatest of example, it was Bilal, ahadun ahad. Even when he was tortured, he continued ahadun ahad. And you can learn that in terms of your tawheed and your faith. And he said the second quality is the quality of leadership and kingdom, but a just one. And that we can learn from King Najashi of Habash.
No.
And then he says, if you want also to learn wisdom,
No.
you can only find it from the Africans. And the greatest of example is Luqman al-Hakim,
No.
the man with the greatest of wisdom
No.
ever. And he chose wisdom over prophethood.
Well, by the way, I have referred to this hadith that you are referring to in this chapter contribution.
Oh, yes.
Yeah? This hadith, look, the translation, the very crude translation.
Oh, yes.
I think that you are referring to is, look after the blacks.
It's
For
possible
among,
yes.
now, for among them are the three lords of paradise.
100%.
Are the three lords of paradise.
Exactly.
Luqman the sage.
Yes.
Najashi.
Yes.
Bilal the Muadhin.
Yes.
Interestingly, without exposing the journey of going through this, of writing this, but there was the view that, is this authentic, or did the Prophet ever say this? which then takes us into the politics of hadith scholarship itself. Even the very notion that Luqman chose wisdom over prophethood,
Yes.
it needs to be, who was that the case? Was that not the case?
Yes.
What perception influenced this idea or notion that Luqman selected wisdom over prophethood?
Oh, yes.
So, in fact, one other scholar, by the way, contemporary scholar, Rudolf Warre, author of the Walking Quran,
Oh, yes.
has taken this hadith a step further,
Wow.
a step further, and said, by the way, even the translations,
Yes.
this is what he says, Warre is based in the North American context. He says, even this translation, look after,
Yes.
is very problematic
Oh, yes.
because it is very paternalistic, it is very condescending.
Oh, yes.
And he says, if you go, Rudolf Warre says, if you go back to the Arabic, ittakhadhu,
Yes.
ittakhadhu means emulate.
Correct. Correct.
And so Rudolf Warre translates the hadith as, instead of look after, as emulate.
Wow. Choice of
Yeah.
words.
Choice of words, and he says it's closer actually to the Arabic intended
Yes. Yes.
meaning. So this is also partly of taking ownership of the Islamic intellectual legacy.
Oh, yes.
Because if someone else comes with a particular attitude and mindset, he will interpret that tradition to serve
100%.
an interest of rendering blacks and Africans as subhumans. And even Warre takes it even further and said, by the way, the Prophet knew blacks and Africans, Abyssinians, if you will, not just as slaves, but also as conquerors.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know the
Yes.
mighty and power of the Exumite Empire.
Yes.
We can even go into Quranic tafsir and exegesis. Yeah, but of course, I suppose that's conversations for elsewhere and another time. Yeah.
I think we need this kind of conversations because honestly, I think as what you had said, maybe I would interpret it this way in my own way, taking from some of your words in what you have expressed. I'm not saying exactly this is what you had actually said, but I'm saying the way I am taking it is that we need a lot of detoxification of how some of these literatures have been interpreted to us, and maybe the choice of words that are used, even the interpretation, you know, which sometimes we call it the tafsir. It will depend where the tafsir comes from, as well as the sharh, who has said the sharh. It may also favor a certain environment.
Exactly.
You know?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And there must be different connotations of that.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
just to push a certain agenda.
Absolutely.
So that a certain segment of a society
Absolutely.
is taken very high than the other.
Absolutely.
You know, so,
Absolutely.
So that's why we need honestly the likes of yourself to somehow give this kind of intellectualism so that we can then protect our intellectual properties, because of then it becomes very important, you know, to us going forward. Moving forward, you are now, I think, more than 25 years now at the University of KwaZulu-Natal,
Yes.
UKZN. What have been the most significant changes you've seen in the study of religion and its relevance in South Africa today?
Well, the study of religion is really a very complex field. Of course, as you know, that the study of religion falls within the ambit of humanities.
Yes.
And humanities generally are shrinking because there's always this bias towards the pure hard sciences.
Yes.
And yet humanities are the soul
Yes.
of the universities. And so religion is within the ambit of humanities. But also you cannot help but touch into the past, for example, certain religious traditions were privileged, more resources were plowed into those,
Yes.
and other traditions were not as prominent as others. So in the reconfiguration of the higher education sector, universities, of course, over the years, if we refer to Islamic studies and the study of Islam, in particular within the academy, no doubt there's been a steady growth, but that is not enough. We tend to emphasize the significance of what we may refer to as cultural capital, and the study of religion, in some ways, falls under this cultural capital, because the more informed about the religious other, the better his understanding of the different other, rather than demonize.
Oh, yeah.
And even our own institutions,
Yeah.
I'm talking about Muslim institutions,
Yes.
if you were to fundraise for the building of the mosque, chances are you get bags full of money. And if you were to fundraise for, say, I just want bursaries for 5 students,
Yes.
there are these brilliant minds, yeah, that I think should devote their life in the study of, say, religion, Islam, or whatever, for the next 5 years in a very concentrated way,
Yes.
without any anxieties, without any distractions.
Yes.
And the best way to do so is a qualitative scholarship, a quality scholarship, not a handout,
Yes.
so that they must again come next year. You see, so we need to begin to think in terms of endowments. I'm not even sure if Awqaf is thinking in these terms. Yeah? How many black students in Soweto, for example, often drop out, not because they are not capable intellectually
Yes.
and academically,
Yes.
pure lack of resources.
Yes.
Pure lack of resources. So one of the challenging things for me in my life as an academic involved in the higher education sector has always this lack of resources.
Yes.
Just to have sufficient, adequate bursaries to make the life of students in isolated disciplines like the study of religion, for example, to make it more attractive, because the study of religion in many ways is the study of society and intercultural differences.
How do you see the future of indigenous Muslims in South Africa going forward?
That's a tough one. I think going forward, then I would say Black African Muslims going forward need to have a macro vision of society and look in the broader scheme of things and not look at themselves as insignificant,
Oh, yeah.
inward-looking subjects of players. They must see themselves as an integral part of society, as it were. And to play a meaningful role within society, then they must equip themselves with the critical tools. Not just to be, yes, we do need the religious clergy or ulama, whatever you want to call them, but it's just one dimension, one component. We need other professionals, architects, engineers, data analysts, you name it. Almost every sphere of society, they need to, entrepreneurs, by the way, yes, so that, they can play a meaningful, critical role as independent members of South African civil
society, not dependent, again, maybe on government agencies. No, to say, what is it that we can contribute
Correct.
to bring about meaningful change?
Yes.
But also to provide ethical leadership in different spheres of society.
Oh, yes.
Yeah? Not just preaching, and hence my perhaps reluctance to use languages of non.
Yes.
Because it's negating the other, but rather we need to find inclusive language where we see ourselves as part of South Africa's civil society, and how best can we contribute
Oh, yes.
for the betterment of all. I think you
Let's-
call it in the language of
Yeah.
fiqh,
Oh, yeah, definitely.
the maslaha
Oh, yes.
of the general public.
100%. We understand right now in South Africa, we have a lot of dynamics that are there. We have a lot of ills that are there, particularly social ills that you find in South Africa. Can we present Islam as the solution to the greater majority of South Africa?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I know this might not be a popular thing to say. But can we present it? No, I'm not sure. I'll be honest with you. I'm not sure. Because if the House of Islam is not in order itself, how does it present a solution? Yeah. I mean, it's one thing to talk about the Islamic ideals and visions in an abstract theoretical sense, but in reality, the house is really in shambles. We cannot even speak with one voice to condemn the genocide in Gaza. The Ummah cannot speak in one strong voice to condemn the genocide in Gaza. Yeah. So I'm not sure. So for me, the issue is not really seeking to convert the other.
Yes.
The issue is to be to emulate
Yes.
the example of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and what he represents.
Yes.
Not just in terms of the dress code, but also in terms of actual conduct. Bu'ithtu li'utammim akhlaqun nas. I've been sent to perfect human conduct. Human conduct, not just in the narrow religious sense, but human conduct in its multiple, diverse, complex ways. But through what? Through what Don Matera calls what I interpret as the ethic of compassion.
Oh, yes.
Through compassion.
Oh, yes.
Not through demonization, but through compassion.
Oh, yes.
If we are embodiments of compassion, then perhaps this is where we need to start, not to demonize.
Oh, yeah. Maybe your last advice that you would give to the greater communities of South Africa, particularly the Muslim community of South Africa and maybe in the world, on how we should become more exemplary to those ethic standards that were demonstrated to us by the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu
I think again, if we take a page from the Sirah, an example in the life of the Prophet, when the Prophet, for example, was asked about his companions, he replied by saying, "Ashabi kanujum."
Yes.
My companions are like stars.
Yes.
Some stars are brighter,
Yes.
shine more than others. Nevertheless, he invoked the metaphor of stars to say, if you take guidance from any of them, you will truly be guided.
Yes.
You see? So I think what the Ummah or the Muslim leadership in particular, perhaps this is where the focus needs to be on the Muslim leadership. It must bust what I called its ego, Ana khairu minhu. I'm better than the other. They need to bust that ego and go back to the ethic of Bilal through the metaphor of فإنما كنت بالأمس عبد حبشي فأبو بكر خير مني.
Subhanallah.
Humility.
Yes.
Yeah, and be embodiments of a leadership that is more humble and more caring, what others call in the literature of different styles of leadership, servant leadership.
Yes.
Which, by the way, resonates also with the prophetic tradition.
Yes.
As-Sayyidul Qawm Khadimuhum.
Yes.
The best leader of a people is the one who
Serves the people.
serves the people.
Yes.
And this we can also translate and apply even to our political leaders
Correct.
in the broader society. That is not to be haughty and arrogant. Be humble servants of our people. I'm now talking beyond just Muslim sector.
Oh, yes.
I'm talking to the general South African public.
Oh, yes.
We need humble servant leadership that is caring earnestly for the people, not closer to election times,
Oh, yes.
but through all times.
Subhanallah.
Thank you.
Subhanallah. We are very grateful that you are here with us. I am highly honored to have sat with you. We have done injustice in this short space of time. We wish to have you again, as we teach our people, we guide our people, but in more also on other programs that SMA is proud of, that we are trying to somehow develop the people and maybe guide them towards the righteousness as well as the proper Islamic ethos, and Islamic ethics as well. We are very happy that you are here. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you. We know you have taken your time from the busy schedule. We are very happy that you are here with us. As it has been expressed, لِكُلِّ فَنٍ رِجَالٍ, for every field there is man. And today I was with the man that encompasses this saying so beautifully. In the saying of Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where he says, "Al-mu'minu ma'lafun, wala khayra fi man la ya'laf, wala yu'laf." A believer is an embodiment of love. There is no good in the one that does not show love and is not shown love. And this is the beautiful teachings of our Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This was such a great and beautiful segment that we had today as SMA. Continue again to subscribe with us, show and share your comments on in all of our social media spaces. Until we meet again, inshallah, fi amanillahi, wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.